They said my husband died of a heart attack, a tragic sudden end to a respected life. But the truth was far more chilling. And the moment it shattered my world wasn't in a quiet room, but right there, by his open casket. My own son, his face a mask of grief and accusation, pointed a trembling finger at me amidst our stunned guests and screamed words that still echo in my nightmares. "Today you are next." That was the beginning, the moment I knew I wasn't just grieving, I was fighting for my life and my name. Listen to my story until the end and tell me, what would you have done in my place? I am Eleanor Vance, and just hours after Arthur, my beloved husband, was gone, my carefully constructed world crumbled. The hushed elegance of our family estate, meant to be a sanctuary for mourners, became a stage for my public condemnation. Ethan, my 25-year-old son, driven by a raw, potent mix of sorrow and something darker, had just uttered a prophecy that froze the blood in my veins. His words hung in the air, thick with accusation, turning every sorrowful murmur from our friends and neighbors into a judgment against me. My grief was instantly overshadowed by a terrifying fear and the bitter taste of betrayal. Before all this, before Arthur and the life we built, I grew up in a household that valued quiet strength and sharp minds. My father, a meticulous archivist, taught me the power hidden in details, the satisfaction of uncovering truths buried deep. I had a promising career as a forensic accountant, known for my knack for untangling complex financial webs and spotting the smallest discrepancies others missed. It was a life of intellectual rigor, a world where facts were king, and I thrived on the challenge of piecing together fragmented information to reveal a complete picture. But I chose a different path, one dedicated to family. I poured my energy into supporting Arthur, becoming the silent, steadfast force behind his growing business empire and his extensive charitable work. I was a devoted wife, a loving mother, though Ethan and I sometimes felt a distance between us, him always striving to step out of Arthur's imposing shadow. Our life together was a testament to enduring love, shared ambition, and a legacy built on integrity and philanthropy. My reputation was untarnished, something I cherished, making Ethan's public accusation a devastating blow that struck at the very core of who I was. The aftermath was a descent into a living nightmare. I didn't just lose Arthur, I lost my son too. Ethan, fueled by his public outburst, tried to have me declared emotionally unstable, using his accusation as leverage to seize control of Arthur's entire estate. The grief was still a raw wound, but now it was compounded by this fresh, agonizing betrayal from my own flesh and blood. Every day felt like walking through a fog of disbelief and profound loss, trying to grasp how my life had spiraled so violently out of control in mere days. My once vibrant social circle evaporated. Friends, who had offered condolences one moment, now subtly distanced themselves, their eyes filled with thinly veiled suspicion. Gossip spread like wildfire through the community, turning my name into a whispered scandal. The police, initially ruling Arthur's death a heart attack, reopened the case, influenced by Ethan's testimony and the sudden, murky cloud of suspicion. They treated me with a chilling professionalism that felt more like accusation, forcing me to relinquish control of Arthur's beloved foundation, stripping away everything I had helped build. My home, once a sanctuary of love and accomplishment, became a gilded cage, a prison of fear and crushing loneliness. But beneath the surface of my public humiliation and private despair, something began to stir. They saw a grieving widow, broken and vulnerable, but they underestimated the steel forged by years of quiet observation and meticulous work. My dormant forensic accounting skills, that keen eye for detail and pattern recognition, began to reawaken. Arthur, in his wisdom, had always been a man who prepared for every eventuality, and I knew, deep down, he wouldn't have left me completely defenseless. I had to honor his memory, clear my name, and uncover the truth behind his death and, perhaps more painfully, Ethan's sudden, inexplicable betrayal. I just knew I had to find a way to redeem him, even if it meant fighting against him. Today you will learn my revenge story, a tale of betrayal and cunning that began when my own son, at my husband's funeral, pointed a finger at me and screamed, "Today you are next." They said my husband died of a heart attack, a tragic, sudden end to a respected life. But the truth was far more chilling, and the moment it shattered my world wasn't in a quiet room, but right there, by his open casket. My own son, his face a mask of grief and accusation, pointed a trembling finger at me amidst our stunned guests and screamed words that still echo in my nightmares. Today, you are next. That was the beginning, the moment I knew I wasn't just grieving, I was fighting for my life and my name. Listen to my story until the end and tell me, what would you have done in my place? I am Eleanor Vance, and just hours after Arthur, my beloved husband, was gone, my carefully constructed world crumbled. The hushed elegance of our family estate, meant to be a sanctuary for mourners, became a stage for my public condemnation. Ethan, my 25-year-old son, driven by a raw, potent mix of sorrow and something darker, had just uttered a prophecy that froze the blood in my veins. His words hung in the air, thick with accusation, turning every sorrowful murmur from our friends and neighbors into a judgment against me. My grief was instantly overshadowed by a terrifying fear and the bitter taste of betrayal. Before all this, before Arthur and the life we built, I grew up in a household that valued quiet strength and sharp minds. My father, a meticulous archivist, taught me the power hidden in details, the satisfaction of uncovering truths buried deep. I had a promising career as a forensic accountant, known for my knack for untangling complex financial webs and spotting the smallest discrepancies others missed. It was a life of intellectual rigor, a world where facts were king, and I thrived on the challenge of piecing together fragmented information to reveal a complete picture. But I chose a different path, one dedicated to family. I poured my energy into supporting Arthur, becoming the silent, steadfast force behind his growing business empire and his extensive charitable work. I was a devoted wife, a loving mother, though Ethan and I sometimes felt a distance between us, him always striving to step out of Arthur's imposing shadow. Our life together was a testament to enduring love, shared ambition, and a legacy built on integrity and philanthropy. My reputation was untarnished, something I cherished, making Ethan's public accusation a devastating blow that struck at the very core of who I was. The aftermath was a descent into a living nightmare. I didn't just lose Arthur, I lost my son too. Ethan, fueled by his public outburst, tried to have me declared emotionally unstable, using his accusation as leverage to seize control of Arthur's entire estate. The grief was still a raw wound, but now it was compounded by this fresh, agonizing betrayal from my own flesh and blood. Every day felt like walking through a fog of disbelief and profound loss, trying to grasp how my life had spiraled so violently out of control in mere days. My once vibrant social circle evaporated. Friends who had offered condolences one moment now subtly distanced themselves, their eyes filled with thinly veiled suspicion. Gossip spread like wildfire through the community, turning my name into a whispered scandal. The police, initially ruling Arthur's death a heart attack, reopened the case, influenced by Ethan's testimony and the sudden, murky cloud of suspicion. They treated me with a chilling professionalism that felt more like accusation, forcing me to relinquish control of Arthur's beloved foundation, stripping away everything I had helped build. My home, once a sanctuary of love and accomplishment, became a gilded cage, a prison of fear and crushing loneliness. But beneath the surface of my public humiliation and private despair, something began to stir. They saw a grieving widow, broken and vulnerable, but they underestimated the steel forged by years of quiet observation and meticulous work. My dormant forensic accounting skills, that keen eye for detail and pattern recognition, began to reawaken. Arthur, in his wisdom, had always been a man who prepared for every eventuality, and I knew, deep down, he wouldn't have left me completely defenseless. I had to honor his memory, clear my name, and uncover the truth behind his death and, perhaps more painfully, Ethan's sudden, inexplicable betrayal. I just knew I had to find a way to redeem him, even if it meant fighting against him. Listen to this story until the end and tell me, what would you have done in my place? My name is Eleanor Vance, and I stood by my beloved husband Arthur's open casket, numb with grief, surrounded by hushed mourners. The air was thick with sorrow, yet a deeper chill pierced through me when my own son, Ethan, his face twisted with rage and accusation, pointed a trembling finger right at me. Amidst our stunned guests, his words cut through the silence like a knife, echoing in my ears, "Today you are next." That chilling prophecy wasn't just an accusation, it was the moment my world shattered, pushing me onto a path I never imagined. The elegant drawing room, usually a place of quiet comfort, transformed into a public execution ground for my reputation. Arthur's dignified open casket, meant for final goodbyes, became a stage for my public condemnation. Ethan's voice, usually so measured, was raw with a venom I'd never heard, his accusation turning every sympathetic glance into a stare of judgment. My grief for Arthur, still so fresh and agonizing, was instantly eclipsed by a terrifying fear and a bitter, burning sense of betrayal. It felt like a punch to the gut, leaving me gasping for air, fully exposed, and utterly alone. That day, I didn't just lose Arthur. I lost my son, my peace, and my standing in the community. The shock was a cold wave, followed by a searing humiliation that burrowed deep into my bones. The world I knew, built on love and respect, crumbled around me in those horrifying seconds. There was no turning back from that public shaming, no way to pretend it hadn't happened. In that instant, amidst the whispers and stares, a quiet resolve began to harden within me. The path of grief was now intertwined with a fierce, unwavering determination to uncover the truth and fight for my very survival. I wasn't born into the Vance wealth, not by a long shot. My childhood was modest, filled with quiet evenings in our small home, often watching my father, a kind but very precise archivist, pore over ancient documents. He taught me that every detail, no matter how small, held a piece of a larger puzzle. Truth is often buried in the footnotes, Eleanor, he'd say, his spectacles perched on his nose. And it's your job to find it. That quiet pursuit of accuracy, the satisfaction of uncovering truths buried deep, became a fundamental part of who I was, shaping my mind in ways I wouldn't fully appreciate until much later. That methodical approach led me to a promising career as a forensic accountant. I thrived on the intellectual challenge, the intricate dance of numbers and ledgers. Colleagues knew me for my unwavering focus, my almost uncanny ability to untangle complex financial webs that others simply gave up on. I found discrepancies where no one else looked, piecing together fragments of information to reveal a complete, often shocking picture. It was a life of rigorous logic, a world where facts were indeed king, and I felt a deep sense of purpose in bringing clarity to chaos. Then Arthur Vance walked into my life, a whirlwind of ambition and charm. Our worlds were different, but our values aligned: integrity, hard work, and a desire to build something meaningful. Falling in love with him wasn't a choice. It was an undeniable force. I chose to step away from my budding career, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I saw the vision he had, the good he wanted to do, and I knew I could be a powerful, silent force behind him, supporting his dreams as much as he supported mine. I poured my energy into his burgeoning business empire and his extensive charitable work. While he was the public face, the charismatic leader, I was often behind the scenes, meticulously reviewing contracts, advising on investments, and ensuring his philanthropic endeavors were truly making an impact. People saw his success, but few understood the quiet dedication, the countless hours I spent ensuring every detail was perfect, every decision sound. It wasn't just a marriage. It was a partnership built on mutual respect and shared goals, a testament to what we could achieve together. Becoming a mother to Ethan was a different kind of joy, a different kind of challenge. I loved him fiercely, always. But even as a child, he wrestled with Arthur's imposing shadow, always striving to prove himself, to carve his own path. I tried to bridge that gap, to nurture his unique spirit, but there was always a subtle distance, a yearning in him that I couldn't quite reach. I wished for a closer bond, a more open communication, but I always believed our love would eventually overcome any unspoken tensions. Our life together, the one Arthur and I built, was a testament to enduring love, shared ambition, and a legacy founded on integrity and philanthropy. Our home wasn't just a house, it was a hub of activity, a place where ideas blossomed and dreams took flight. My reputation, meticulously guarded and truly earned, was untarnished. It was a reflection of our shared commitment to decency and honesty. I cherished it, knowing it was built on a lifetime of hard work and unwavering principles, something truly invaluable. I remember one time, early in Arthur's career, a crucial business deal hinged on a complex financial report. Everyone was overwhelmed. I spent 3 days and nights sifting through mountains of data, finding a single, almost invisible error that would have cost him everything. I presented my findings quietly, without fanfare. Arthur just looked at me, his eyes full of gratitude and trust. "You saved us, Eleanor," he said. "You always see what others miss." That moment crystallized our partnership, our unspoken understanding. That reputation, my good name, was everything to me. It wasn't just about social standing. It was about honoring my father's lessons, honoring Arthur's trust, and honoring the woman I had worked so hard to become. It represented a lifetime of integrity, of choosing the right path, even when it was difficult. To have it shattered, to have my own son publicly brand me as something vile, was more than just humiliation. It was an blatant assault on the very core of my identity, an unbearable weight. Even when life was good, I always maintained a quiet preparedness, a readiness for the unexpected. Arthur, in his own way, understood this part of me. He often said I had a sixth sense for trouble, a way of seeing the faint outlines of storms on the horizon. He trusted my judgment implicitly, often leaving me subtle clues, knowing I would understand. I never imagined those instincts, those skills, would become my only lifeline against my own son's betrayal. Before that day, my life was one of purpose, of quiet contribution, of unwavering loyalty to the people and values I held dear. I dedicated myself to building a strong family, a successful business, and a legacy of good. I truly believed I had done everything right, lived an honorable life. To be so cruelly and publicly accused, to have everything I cherished ripped away, felt like the ultimate injustice. I knew, with every fiber of my being, that I did not deserve what had happened. The mourners eventually left, but their lingering whispers and uneasy glances felt like daggers. The once warm embrace of our home became a cold, echoing chamber, each shadow seeming to hold a judgment. Arthur's death had been a shock, but Ethan's accusation, that venomous scream, had poisoned the very air I breathed. My carefully curated life, built on decades of shared dreams and honest work, was now a fragile glass, shattered beyond recognition, leaving me exposed and utterly terrified. The silence that followed his outburst was far more deafening than any noise, filled with unspoken accusations. Ethan didn't waste a moment. Even before Arthur was laid to rest, his legal team was moving like a well-oiled machine, cold and efficient. He sought an emergency injunction, attempting to declare me emotionally unstable, unfit to manage Arthur's affairs, or even my own. It wasn't just about control of the estate. It was a character assassination, a calculated move to strip me of my credibility and my very sanity. The sheer speed and ruthlessness of his actions were a gut punch, adding insult to injury and twisting the knife deeper into my already wounded heart. The notion that I, Eleanor Vance, a woman known for her composure and sharp mind, could be deemed unstable was utterly humiliating. Lawyers, strangers with cold eyes, questioned my grief, twisted my shock into signs of mental fragility. Every tear I shed, every moment of despair, was catalogued and used against me, painting a picture of a woman unraveling, dangerous even. It felt like a cruel joke, a grotesque parody of my genuine sorrow, designed to invalidate my entire existence and undermine my fight for truth. The process was designed to break my spirit. The first major blow was the forced relinquishment of control over Arthur's beloved foundation. This wasn't just a financial loss. It was a profound severing from his memory, from the good we had built together. I had poured my heart and soul into that foundation, ensuring his philanthropic vision thrived. To have it ripped away by my own son under false pretenses felt like a second death, a betrayal of everything Arthur stood for. It was a public declaration that I was no longer worthy, no longer trusted, no longer Eleanor Vance. Managing the foundation had been my purpose, a tangible continuation of Arthur's benevolent spirit. Now that void gaped open, leaving me adrift. The phone calls stopped coming. The board meetings I once chaired continued without me, my input dismissed. It wasn't just the work. It was the network of dedicated people, the sense of contributing to something greater. The emptiness resonated through the grand halls of our home, a constant reminder of what I had lost, and what had been unfairly stolen from me in the blink of an eye. The subtle shifts began almost immediately. My phone, once buzzing with condolences, grew eerily silent. Invitations to social gatherings, once a staple of our affluent community, ceased to arrive. When I did venture out, The warm smiles I once received were replaced by polite, yet distant, nods. Eyes would quickly avert. Conversations would suddenly quiet as I approached. It was a chilling, unspoken ostracization, a silent verdict passed by those who had once called me friend, now swayed by whispers and suspicion. I remember one afternoon, pushing my cart through the local gourmet market, a place where I'd always greeted familiar faces. I saw Mrs. Sterling, a woman I'd known for 30 years, who'd shared countless coffees and confidences. Our eyes met across an aisle of imported cheeses. Her smile, once so genuine, faltered, replaced by a tight, uncomfortable grimace. She quickly turned her cart and hurried away, pretending not to see me. It was a small moment, but it cut deep, a stark illustration of my new pariah status. The gossip spread like a virulent disease, infecting every corner of our community. Whispers turned into hushed conversations, then into thinly veiled judgments. My name, once synonymous with grace and integrity, became a dirty word, associated with scandal and suspicion. I could feel the weight of their judgment even when I wasn't present, an invisible cloud of accusation hanging over my head. It was a constant, insidious assault on my character, eroding my standing piece by painful piece. The initial ruling of Arthur's death as a heart attack was quickly overturned, influenced by Ethan's dramatic testimony. The police, once respectful, now treated me with a chilling professional detachment. Every interaction felt like an interrogation, every question a trap. They weren't seeking comfort or truth. They were looking for cracks in my story, confirming their preconceived notions. The very authorities meant to protect me now saw me as a potential criminal, making my fear a constant, unwelcome companion. The relentless scrutiny was exhausting. Detectives trawled through our lives, interviewing staff, poring over financial records, questioning every detail of Arthur's last days. My private grief became a public spectacle, dissected and analyzed for any hint of foul play. The unspoken accusation hung heavy in every room, every conversation, making it impossible to mourn, impossible to breathe. I felt like I was living under a microscope, every move, every emotion, scrutinized for guilt. Our beautiful estate, once a sanctuary of love and accomplishment, became a luxurious prison. The sprawling rooms, filled with cherished memories, now felt vast and empty, amplifying my loneliness. I rarely left, fearing the stares and the whispers, retreating further into myself. The walls, once a comfort, now felt like bars, trapping me in a gilded cage of fear and isolation. It was a cruel irony, living in a place of such grandeur, yet feeling utterly destitute. I had always been a woman of quiet influence, a force behind the scenes. Now my voice was silenced, my opinions dismissed, my decisions overridden. Ethan, with his lawyers, controlled access to funds, froze accounts, and dictated who could visit me. I was no longer Eleanor Vance, the respected matriarch. I was a suspect, a ward, a pawn in a game I hadn't understood. My autonomy, my very right to self-determination, had been systematically stripped away, leaving me powerless. While my world crumbled, Ethan seemed to thrive, at least outwardly. He moved into Arthur's office, took over the reins of the business, and began making pronouncements to the press, portraying himself as the grieving, responsible son stepping up in a crisis. Each news article, each public statement, twisted the knife. It wasn't just that he believed the accusations, it was that he seemed to relish the power, the attention, building his empire on the ruins of my reputation and Arthur's memory. The ultimate practical humiliation came when my personal bank accounts were frozen. I, Eleanor Vance, a woman who had managed vast sums for decades, was suddenly without access to my own money. It was a calculated move, designed to incapacitate me, to leave me truly helpless. Standing at the bank counter, being told I couldn't access my funds, felt like a public stripping, a final indignity that underscored my absolute powerlessness in their eyes. The feeling of vulnerability was crushing. The constant barrage of public suspicion and condemnation was a heavy, suffocating blanket. Every outing, every glance, every conversation was tainted. It wasn't just individual encounters, it was the collective weight of an entire community turning its back. My spirit, once resilient, felt like it was being slowly crushed under this immense pressure, leaving me breathless and despairing. I felt the world closing in, leaving no room for my truth. The days blurred into a monotonous cycle of grief, fear, and profound loneliness. Sleep offered little respite, haunted by Ethan's face and Arthur's absence. The silence of the house became a torment, amplifying my own internal screams. I ate little, barely moved, my once sharp mind clouded by despair. The isolation was absolute, a chilling realization that I was utterly alone in this battle. With no one left to trust, nowhere to turn for comfort. In the darkest moments, I questioned everything. Had I missed something? Was I truly losing my mind, as Ethan claimed? But then, a flicker. A memory of Arthur's meticulous nature, his insistence on preparedness. He wouldn't have left me completely defenseless. The thought, small and fragile, began to push back against the despair, a seed of doubt about their narrative, a whisper of my own resilience. They saw a broken widow, fragile and vulnerable, easily dismissed. They saw a woman lost in grief, overwhelmed by betrayal, but they forgot the girl who meticulously organized her father's archives, the forensic accountant who unraveled complex deceptions. They underestimated the quiet strength forged by years of observation, the steel hidden beneath the grace. They mistook my composure for weakness, my silence for surrender, a grave error. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, my dormant skills began to stir. My mind, dulled by sorrow, started to pick at threads, to notice inconsistencies in Ethan's story, in the police reports. It was like a forgotten muscle, aching as it reawakened. The need to understand, to uncover the truth, started to overshadow the pain, a familiar intellectual rigor pushing through the emotional fog, demanding answers. I had lost everything. My husband, my son, my reputation, my freedom. I was at rock bottom, utterly stripped bare. But in that raw, desolate place, a fierce, cold determination began to harden. They thought they had broken me, that I was next to fall. But they were wrong. A quiet resolve settled deep within my soul. I would fight back. I would honor Arthur. I would clear my name. And I would expose the truth, no matter the cost. They thought they had me cornered, a grieving widow overwhelmed by sorrow, stripped of her purpose, and on the verge of emotional collapse. They saw my public humiliation, and mistook it for utter defeat, believing I was too broken to fight back, too lost to even care. But beneath the surface of my despair, a different kind of strength was quietly forming, a cold resolve sharpened by the injustice and betrayal. They saw a woman retreating, but I was simply regrouping, preparing to leverage everything they thought I had lost, everything they underestimated about me. My silence wasn't surrender. It was observation, calculation, and the first step toward reclaiming my life and Arthur's legacy. Arthur, bless his meticulous soul, was a man who always prepared for every eventuality, a habit born from years of navigating a complex business world. He often said, "Eleanor, knowledge is the only true armor." Even in our happiest times, he had a subtle way of leaving breadcrumbs, small details or seemingly insignificant actions that, in hindsight, spoke volumes. I realized he wouldn't have left me completely defenseless, not with all the secrets his empire surely held. It was a faint whisper of hope, a gut feeling that there was more to uncover, a deeper truth waiting to be found within the meticulously ordered chaos of his life. My mind, once clouded by grief, began to clear, slowly at first, like the morning fog lifting from a valley. I started looking at everything differently, not with emotional pain, but with the detached, analytical eye of a forensic accountant. I recalled my father's words, "Truth is often buried in the footnotes." I began to re-examine Arthur's study, his personal effects, not just as relics of a lost love, but as potential crime scenes, repositories of hidden information. Every book, every seemingly random note, every digital file became a piece of a puzzle I was determined to solve. A quiet crusade for clarity. It was in his old, leather-bound journal, hidden behind a loose panel in his desk, that I found it. A series of cryptic entries, almost like riddles, pointing to a secure, encrypted digital ledger. Arthur had always loved puzzles, a quirk I'd indulged without fully understanding its purpose until now. He'd often challenged me with brain teasers, testing my logic, my ability to connect disparate facts. This wasn't a game, though. It was a lifeline, a meticulously crafted digital vault that I instinctively knew held the keys to everything, a hidden resource designed for me, and only me, to find. The ledger was protected by layers of sophisticated encryption, far beyond my current technical expertise. My forensic accounting skills were sharp when it came to numbers and patterns, but digital security was a different beast entirely. Frustration gnawed at me, knowing the truth was so close, yet still out of reach. I spent days poring over the riddles, trying combinations, feeling the pressure mount as Ethan's lawyers continued their relentless assault. I needed help, specialized help, someone I could trust implicitly with Arthur's deepest secrets, someone who understood the intricate dance of digital shadows. Then, a name surfaced from the depths of my memory: Marcus Thorne. Decades ago, when I was still a budding forensic accountant, I'd helped Marcus, then a struggling cybersecurity expert, untangle a web of corporate espionage that nearly ruined his career. I'd found the crucial piece of evidence that cleared his name, not for money, but because it was the right thing to do. He'd sworn he owed me, saying, "Eleanor, if you ever need anything at all, just call." That promise, long forgotten, now felt like a beacon in my darkest hour, a hidden ally waiting in the wings. Contacting Marcus was a risk, but it was a calculated one. I couldn't simply call him. I had to be discreet, paranoid even. I used a burner phone, sent a coded message, referencing the old case, a secret handshake only he would recognize. His reply was swift, an immediate offer of assistance, no questions asked, only a quiet understanding of the gravity of my situation. He didn't judge, he didn't doubt. He simply asked, "What do you need, Eleanor?" His unwavering loyalty, forged in a past crisis, became an unexpected, invaluable asset in my present one. Marcus worked with a quiet intensity, his fingers flying across keyboards, his mind dissecting lines of code. The digital ledger slowly yielded its secrets, one layer of encryption after another. What we found was staggering. Not just Arthur's true financial dealings, but encrypted communications, detailed dossiers on his adversaries, and a meticulous paper trail of illicit transactions. It was a treasure trove of compromising information, a digital fortress Arthur had built, not just for protection, but as a weapon, designed for precisely this kind of betrayal, a testament to his foresight. The most shocking revelation, the one that twisted the knife in my heart, was the extent of Silas Blackwood's involvement. He was Arthur's estranged business partner, a man I'd always distrusted, but never imagined capable of such depravity. The ledger laid bare his intricate conspiracy, revealing how he stood to gain billions from Arthur's death and the acquisition of his company. And then, the agonizing truth about Ethan. Not a murderer, but a pawn. Deeply in debt from a gambling addiction, manipulated by Blackwood's promises of power and wealth, coerced into publicly accusing me. My heart ached for my son, even as it burned with fury at Blackwood. They thought they had broken me, a vulnerable widow, but they couldn't have been more wrong. Arthur's ledger, unlocked by Marcus and my own reawakened skills, wasn't just proof of my innocence. It was a blueprint for Blackwood's downfall and a path to Ethan's redemption. The game had changed. They had underestimated the quiet woman who saw every detail, who understood the power of hidden truths. My grief had transformed into an icy resolve, and my fight for survival had now become a precise, strategic campaign for justice. I wasn't just next, I was coming for them. My mind, once clouded by grief, now worked with a cold, precise focus. Arthur's ledger, a digital fortress of truth, became my weapon. I started with Blackwood's stock portfolio, a vulnerable underbelly he thought was impenetrable. Using Marcus's quiet expertise, I leveraged the insider knowledge from Arthur's meticulous records, not to crash the market, but to subtly, systematically chip away at his assets, creating tiny, undetectable tremors in his financial empire. Each calculated move felt like a quiet act of defiance, a promise to Arthur that his foresight would not be in vain, and that I was indeed getting started. Next, I crafted a persona, a disgruntled employee on a burner phone, and started feeding carefully curated fragments of information to financial regulators. It wasn't enough to trigger an immediate investigation, but it was enough to plant seeds of doubt, to create a subtle hum of suspicion around Blackwood's dealings. Simultaneously, I sent anonymous tips to Sarah Chen, the investigative journalist Arthur had quietly supported. I gave her just enough to chew on, breadcrumbs that would lead her down the right path, without ever revealing my own hand, watching patiently as her investigative instincts began to awaken. The stage for the climax was Blackwood's own high-profile charity gala, a lavish display of his ill-gotten wealth. I meticulously planned the accidental discovery of the recording, Blackwood coercing Ethan, ensuring it would fall directly into Sarah Chen's hands. It was a risky move, but one that promised maximum impact. I arranged for a seemingly random security glitch, just enough to cause a brief distraction, allowing Chen's team to access a specific area where the disguised evidence lay waiting. The tension in the air that night was palpable, a silent hum of anticipation for the trap I had so carefully set. Then, the moment arrived. As Blackwood basked in the spotlight, live on national television, Sarah Chen stepped forward, her voice cutting through the polite applause. She didn't just accuse. She presented the evidence, detailing Blackwood's fraud, his manipulation, and the chilling truth behind Arthur's death. The camera captured Blackwood's face, a mask of shock and disbelief, as his carefully constructed world crumbled before millions. My heart ached when she revealed Ethan's coerced involvement, but it was a necessary truth, a public unmasking that stripped Blackwood of everything. Blackwood was arrested right there, his public humiliation complete, his financial empire in ruins. Ethan, seeing the full, ugly truth of his manipulation, faced the legal consequences of his actions. But I made sure he understood that while I wouldn't shield him, there was still a chance for him to choose a different path, to redeem himself. I didn't seek reconciliation with Blackwood. I sought justice, which was served. Walking away from the chaos, I felt a quiet sense of dignity restored, a profound peace knowing I had honored Arthur, cleared my name, and turned betrayal into a hard-won victory.